And we will now move over to Brittany, who is going to talk about blurring English language barriers, multilingualism within EAL/D education.
A bit of a long title there. Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Great to see you all here. And sorry I was a bit late. Sorry I missed your presentation, Danielle, but I'm going to go back and have a look at the recording for sure. So I'll just pull my PowerPoint up and hopefully it will work for us all. Can we see the PowerPoint at all?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. No, thank you. Just wanted to double check. I didn't want to keep talking and no one can see it. Well, thank you so much for having us at the lightning talk. So this is a project that there's a team involved, and Danielle is here today as well. So if there's any questions at the end, yeah, we're both more than happy to answer them. So this is a project with, as you can see, Dr. Danielle Heinrichs, Dr. Gail Hager, myself, and Dr. Natalie Lazarou. So this is where some of the key literature in this space we just want to put forward is that there is a growing body of literature that does recognise the importance of students' multilingual resources in educational contexts, and there's a number of sources there. And this is where, as you probably noticed from the title, we are looking into a decolonial approach. And in language education, this is where it is around centering multilingual students as interlocutors with the agency to challenge and even resist some of the dominant language practices. And this is where it's also thinking that it can call for a rethinking of school systems where the medium of instruction, in this particular case, English, given our study was conducted in Australia here, still exerts oppressive control over minority students and their languages. And when we say minority students, it also includes Indigenous students as well. So this is where it's thinking that the promotion of these practices in Australian classrooms, there are some barriers as such, and some of these that have been mentioned in the literature is that there's the full grounding of standard Australian English, or SAE, pressure from curricula, standardized testing, and also a pervasive monolingual mindset. So this is where taking a decolonial approach to language education will allow all students to be exposed to multiple types of knowledge and language, and also be able to draw on diverse linguistic multilingual sources. So this is where we do recognise that there are some support resources and some key documents in particular. And there are 4 dot pointed on the screen here that we looked into a bit more specifically. So the NILIA ESL band scales version 2, the band scales for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander learners, the EALD band scales for state schools in Queensland, and also the EALD learning progressions. So this is where language practices do seem to focus on standard Australian English, and going through these, the language practices do tend to centre on proficiency and mastery of standard Australian English. And this is where there was some provisions for drawing on students' other languages, but sometimes, well, a lot of the time, it wasn't very explicit either. And this is where there were some exceptions, and it was the band scales for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander learners that there were a few examples of the use of home language, also referred to as L1, in particular for speaking. So that's where it's kind of recognising some of those more explicit examples in there that do kind of support these multilingual practices. So this is where the aims and our research questions is that we want to visibilise the opportunities for decolonising standardised language practices for multilingual students who are learning English as an additional language dialect in Australian schools. So we wanted to think about in what ways do teachers in Australia include EALD students' multilingual repertoires in their classrooms, and how might this disrupt the coloniality of languaging and its associated binaries. So just a bit of a nutshell about our studies. So we did use focus groups, and we did have 4 focus groups and a total of 16 participants. So each focus group ran for about an hour, and it was a semi-structured interview with teachers and school leaders. And each focus group was transcribed before analysis, and we did engage in reflective thematic analysis. So blurring the binaries. So this is where we think about the results and some of the ideas that we got from the teachers who did engage in those focus groups. So we did put together 4 headings here, as you can see. So the first one we've called monolingual by multilingual. And this is where some of the things that our participants put forward were how they did encourage, and they did draw on students' linguistic repertoire. They allowed other peers to assist with translation, and they also encouraged the inclusion of common greeting and phrases from other students' languages. And also the teacher or teachers would learn what they could of students' home languages and encourage the use of translation apps. This is the next phase where we move into the professional and personal settings. So what was put forward by our participants was that families are sources and sites of knowledge, both cultural and linguistic knowledge. Parents were invited into the school. Buddy systems were put forward. So in the classroom, students who would speak the same language could offer support. And again, it's creating that supportive environment, not only that relational aspect with the teacher, but between their peers in the classroom to really help enhance that space. And then the next heading, moving down to knowing and unknowing. So this is where it's thinking about the teacher moving into the space of the unknown. And this is where teachers were putting forward that they were comfortable for students to be speaking their home languages and them not knowing what they were saying. They did feel comfortable with students doing that. And also they did provide opportunities and allow those opportunities for home languages to be used and drawn on. And this is where we've entitled this the darker side, because there were some points put forward around just some barriers that the teachers identified. So this is where there's a need for training and support strategies in this space, a lack of time and funding for professional learning and planning for this, and a lack of specialist EALD staff as well. So if we're thinking about implications as such, this is where multilingualism is certainly encouraged. We notice that with our participants, but there are some difficulties individually and also as a profession that can limit their capacity to take this any further. That was recognised. So this is where it's thinking more targeted professional learning could be put in place. So this is where it's drawing on those key documents, but also going beyond this as well. So to be effective and have this being sustained in classrooms, we also need to go beyond that. Online language learning modules for teachers. And another key point, we conducted this research with teachers, getting their perspective. Further research would be needed from the students' perspective as well, and with observation, just to provide that deeper insight around their thoughts, their feelings, and their opportunities that they feel to use their home language within the classroom environment. So that is it from me with my presentation. Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you do have any questions, as I said, both Danielle and I are here to answer. So I'll stop sharing if you like.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, a wonderful talk about a topic that I'd never really thought of before. So great to hear about it. And does anybody have any questions for Brittany or Danielle? And Danielle. Feel free to take the microphone if you'd like. Oh, Kim, yes, take the microphone.
Hi guys, thank you so much for sharing your research with us. Fantastic. Looks like some really important work there. It's not really a question, but I suppose just thinking for future or what's next. I just see a lot of similarity with some of the work that I do in that you're kind of looking at a strengths-based approach to education, whether it be multilingualism or mathematics education or whichever it might be. So I kind of see those 4 headings, I suppose you had. I feel like one student-centered approach. You've got binaries in the traditional classroom of what's true, what's false, what's right, what's wrong, that kind of dichotomy. You've got in when education is student-centered, that portion or that concern by teachers, the darker side that you spoke about. Stepping into the unknown, first of all, that you talked about, and then that kind of, well, how do you address professional development to help support teachers with making these shifts? So I feel a similarity in the work, and I love the idea that you're thinking of going to the students next, because I wonder when these kinds of strengths-based approaches are used in any classroom. So I wonder if it's in multilingual or in EALD, English as Additional Language and Dialect lessons. I wonder if students feel that those practices feel more valued, and I wonder what impact that might have on their engagement. So I wondered what you were thinking of doing. Like, have you thought about how you're going to work with students yet, or that approach? Any of either Brittany or Danielle? How you might seek to know that?
I was going to say, I'm happy for you to go. I saw you nodding first.
Right? Yeah, I think, Kim, we would absolutely love to go, as Brittany said, and observe the students, because I think it's a really complex issue around how students perceive this, because the teachers were telling us, well, we do this and we include their languages and we bring the parents in, but a lot of the students and families I know in other literature will talk about the fact that, well, they really want to learn English and they know they need it. And so it is a bit complex. And I think sometimes the multilingual students themselves are also kind of indoctrinated into this idea that, it's not a strength, it's a deficit to not speak English properly. And so it can be quite complicated. So I think you're right. It would be great to go and observe and chat to students and potentially families as well, to find out where they actually stand in relation to what teachers say they're doing. And also to see what, obviously teachers tell us they're doing one thing and they might be doing way more than that. They might not be doing as much as they think. So certainly the observation element of it would be great. Most of the teachers if not all of them, were in far north Queensland. So yeah, in terms of practicalities, we'd probably have to think about some more local schools to get into. But the benefit of working with these particular teachers is that they also had a number of Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander students in their classes. So that was something, I guess, a bit unique about who we spoke with. So it would be great to go up there, but we haven't quite got that far yet.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Kim. Somebody else put their hand up, but my mind has forgotten who it was. Elizabeth, would you like to ask your question?
I would love to answer my question. Have my question answered. Where's policy up to here? Because we're still rebounding from first 4 hours English that was now found as to be a very detrimental policy. So I'm wondering where policy is up to. My other question is, I taught in a school once where the class, I had taught 2 native English speakers in a week, but all the school was from the same area of Bangladesh. So in other words, we had no problem translating, and that was just the way we worked. So they could be newly arrived or what, but there is now a difference too between whether you've got a homogenous other language group in your class or whether you've got a very heterogeneous. So 2 questions, 1 policy, 1 class makeup and how that might work.
Can I just clarify, Elizabeth, you mean policy as in the hours for English? What?
Education policy.
Or specifically just
schools. So for it back, I think it got ousted about 2009, 2010, but it was then that because the priority was teaching Australian English, particularly in Aboriginal communities, they were not allowed to teach or speak Aboriginal English for the first 4 hours of each school day. And the marginalisation that occurred through policies such as that. And I was just wondering, and it could be that it's not part of your study and I'm asking left field questions, and that's fine too. So feel free not to answer.
That's a super interesting question, and it didn't come up in the study. No one brought that up, but I think it would be something really worth following up on. So thanks for flagging that. I don't know. We didn't ask that. So I got the sense from the teachers that we spoke with that there was, they were very happy for the students to be using any languages in the classroom, and that they were not enforcing anything like that, which is really positive. But I can probably speak more to your other question. And certainly I think, many of us.
Versus homogeneity, because the homogeneity was actually really relatively easy for a non speaker of their language to manage in the classroom, because we always translated.
And I think teachers are really, at least in this study, were very happy for that to happen, and they also felt they could draw on the families because you had so many people, and I think it's a lot easier for them to get those resources when they have got classrooms with multiple different languages. Then they're needing to look at other ways to do that, and it's harder for us as teachers to learn a bit of that language because there's so many that we might need to learn. So I think we're really lucky that we've got some really good software now. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, and you really have to know how to use it, and you have to trust the students. But we did see teachers making use of that and thinking of strategies for doing it and saving resources from year to year, so that even if it's just 1 or 2 students, at least for the next year, you might have something. Brittany, do you remember anything else around that teachers brought up?
No, I can't remember anything else, but that was some of the key points I remember. And
thank you so much.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, that policy one was a great question too, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Excellent. So does anybody else have a final question before we wrap up for today? Okay, I'm going to take the silence as a no. And thank you everybody for coming today, and of course to our presenters for giving us so much new knowledge with the research that they've been conducting. It's been really great, as always, to hear all the new things that have been done in the department and actually get to know a little bit more about our colleagues and the things that drive them when they turn up to work every day. So thank you. If the presenter wanted to put their camera on so you can wave goodbye, feel free. But otherwise, excellent. Look at everyone waving. Beautiful. Bye, everyone. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to the next lightning talk.